No, straight away. Looking at what we covered last week, we looked at two things. What is AI and what is generative AI? And I want to put this to those of you who were here from last week, if anyone wants to actually have a go at answering this question. So what is AI? Can anyone once again for an answer?
It's artificial computer technologies providing responses to prompts.
Mhm.
And the learning language model is just something that has been inputted. And I'm on a call. Oh,
That's completely
sorry.
not to worry, Candace, not to worry.
And that the learning model is inputted by humans, where the generative is allowing the machine to learn as it's processing. Correct?
Exactly.
Woo,
Exactly. Wonderful
yes.
explanation, Candice. Well done. Well done. Exactly. Artificial intelligence refers to a branch of computing where in which we have quote unquote intelligent programs and whatnot. And it essentially is when we equip machines with the ability to learn, think, and do things that usually require human intelligence. And so a nice way to think about it is like a robot assistant. Siri in many people's phones, and I think Siri may turn on right now. No, it doesn't. Is actually a form of AI that we've had in our pockets for years and years. And then, as Candice mentioned, generative AI falls on the remit of that branch of artificial intelligence and quite specific, where in which it has different algorithms and uses things such as machine learning, neural networks, and whatnot to actually take a set of information and learn and become intelligent on a specific skill set, and then generate human-like information and whatnot. And again, going through everyday examples of AI that we see all the time, we have things such as Siri, Alexa, social media platforms use AI. I know TikTok is very heavy on that. And then also navigation apps such as Google Maps, Waze, such and such forth. Thumbs up if that makes sense. Thumbs up if anyone has any immediate questions. Wonderful. Perfect. Lovely. Any thumbs down, please do feel free to pop it in the chat and just throw in a question there, and I'll get to it as soon as I can. So today, we're going to be looking at writing prompts for large language models, LLMs. And in this case, and to make it a lot easier, we're going to be using ChatGPT. Now, by all means, if you have a preferred AI tool that you use, so it can be Claude, Gemini, it can be even a bespoke tool from Hugging Face, by all means, feel free to pick up whichever one that you feel most comfortable with. But we tend to recommend ChatGPT because, well, can anyone tell me what the strengths of ChatGPT are and what we discussed last week whilst I put it in the chat? Jacqueline, exactly. Creativity. So one of the things that ChatGPT is really good at is this element of creative writing and whatnot. And it really comes in quite powerful when you do things such as blog generation, you write descriptions for certain products, you may be in a social media team or marketing team, and the readers help there. But even still, when it comes to ideation and when you want to try and put two things together, but you can't particularly articulate what you're trying to get at, it is a really helpful tool to go around doing this sort of stuff. So if everyone could sort of open ChatGPT, or please, by all means, pick a large language model or an AI interface tool that you feel most comfortable with. And once everyone's got that up, if I can get a thumbs up, and then we'll crack on. Wonderful. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Candice. Thank you, Madhavi. Thank you, John. Give it another couple of seconds. Liz is ready. Hazel's ready. Shishma's ready. Wonderful. Cool. So I'm going to close the chat quickly. So when it comes to crafting effective prompts for large language models, it's really important to understand this as a skill. Now, for those of you who might have seen, there's actually now a whole industry of job roles that's been created after the advent of generative AI into sort of the popular, so the popular knowledge, I guess you want to call it. And it's the fact that when it comes to writing prompts, it's a skill in itself. And the role of prompt engineer is actually really highly sought after to the role. And it's a really important skill. And so a lot of times when you have short generic prompts, they can be, quite useful, quite punchy, and get to the answer quite quickly. However, typically longer prompts with more information and detailed instructions tend to perform way better and get a lot better responses than your standard sort of short one-liners. And there's sort of five aspects for writing a prompt, and that is the context, task, instruction, clarification, and refine. Now, this technique is what we teach here, and it's something that is universal to all large language models. Now, don't get me wrong, over time, large language models will become a lot more smarter, but that means that what we want to get out of them will become a lot more difficult. So this is something where in which it's really important to understand and practice this skill. Don't worry if this feels a bit overwhelming, as it's something that we'll be continuing to revisit throughout the entirety of the program and this course. But essentially, this technique is very simple, but it's a powerful method for creating exceptional prompts. And they tend to deliver really unique and accurate responses. I know last week, someone brought up the question of what happens if you give two prompts to, let's say, Gemini and ChatGPT, will you get the same response? Now, typically, yes, you'll get a response which is in a sort of the same direction. But if you really want to get the most almost like brain power out of a large language model, it's really important to have a really clear and important prompt. So I'll just share this here. Now, by all means, do not worry about writing it down. You can screenshot it. However, this will be shared in the recording, so you can come back to the recording later and have a look at it. You can see here we've got a quick question from Candice. Is asking questions as you build the prompt better? Like, can you help me with, do you understand? Candice, I think you might have seen this stuff before. It is very, very important to continually build feedback and whatnot by asking questions. And so we'll get to that in a second, but really, really good stuff. But looking at the first aspect of it, which is providing context. So it might seem quite strange, the fact that we have these quote unquote super intelligent programs or computer tools that allow us to, they can do mass amounts of calculations, they can create depositions, they can do all this sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, the best way that I like to describe it is like it's a super intelligent human who has literally no idea who you are, what you want, and how to basically help you. And so this is why context is one of the most important things when it comes to writing prompts. And the fact that context is actually the foundation for getting those targeted answers, because without it, the response may not really be relevant, and rarely does it tend to be helpful. And it's similar like a conversation with a friend. That's a really nice way to put it, in terms of providing background information helps you to ensure that the question is always understood and allows for more appropriate and useful response. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here, and these are a bunch of different examples where in which we've set out the context of these. So I'm going to copy and paste them into the chat. So please feel free to experiment on your own. So as you can see here for this first one, we've got this example. You're an experienced content writer with high levels of expertise and authorities within the tech industry. You have exceptional vocabulary and you are able to explain complex topics to beginners with ease. Now, what we looked at last week was actually, well, could we actually create, using Amazon's Party Rock program, the tool that can actually explain really complicated topics to a child? But all we inputted was actually just that, literally, and that might not have actually yielded us the best result. But with something like this, as you can see, we're set in the context of who this quote unquote superhuman or super intelligent program has to play the role of and has to be, and setting expectations. So I'm going to copy and paste these into the chat. And if you'd like to actually just copy and paste them straight into the ChatGPT, and let me know what you think of the output and whether it's something that you actually felt was a lot more nuanced and a lot more in-depth comparative to if you were to just say, explain concept to a beginner. Or for the second one, just create a lesson for a class of 25 people, and that's it. And let me know what you think. And so if you can let me know what you thought of the output, if you can let me know whether you think that actually changed anything, if you have any questions around it, please do feel free to come off mute or pop it in the chat.
I was afraid that maybe the teacher one might not have been too specific. Because it's not really asking for any subject matter or anything like that. But I got a good one. Um, a lesson plan exploring the world of animals to understand different types of animals, their habitats, and basic characteristics. And the duration would take about 60 minutes and gives me an entire materials list as well as a warm up, um, I'm sorry, activities and a conclusion with a time set for that. So, uh, along with a follow up. Woo, pretty nice.
So yeah, apologies. I forgot to mention that. So sorry about that. But yeah, this is almost like setting the context where in which we can then attach whatever sort of request we want. So by using this as a means to say, as Candice pointed out, by setting the context of the fact that it's a school teacher creating high energy lesson plans for a class of 25 children and whatnot, we can then go ahead to actually ask for a more specific outcome and attach whatever we were going to ask or the request we were going to give to ChatGPT from there. Looking at the chat, so we've had Liz who used a travel one, and how did the output go, Liz? How did you find it? And Tanya's using Gemini, and Google used their location for a travel guide prompt, and they got about 4 paragraphs with questions for a follow-up.
Yeah, it gave a lot of information, focused primarily first on 5 different cities with brief description and some common activities there. Gave some specifics on travel tips, and then a couple of activities like join a guided city tour, take a cooking class, or a traditional hammam experience, explore the nightlife, safety tips, and packing essentials as well. So
Wonderful.
pretty useful, pretty good for a start.
Wonderful. Nice.
So I got the same response as Candice did earlier when I used the teacher prompt. And then I went followed up with a question saying, can you give me a lesson plan for day 1 of grade 1, covering all the typical subjects for the syllabus? And it gave me a pretty detailed lesson plan,
Nice.
assuming it was day 1 for these first graders. Yep.
That's really good, Melvie. That's really good to hear. So as we can see here, moving on then, so as we can see here, this whole element of setting context is really, really powerful. And particularly when we provided the context of act as. So giving the large language model the persona or sort of asking it to act like any professional you like. So in this case, we saw like a travel guide, we saw a teacher and whatnot, and it's really, really like powerful and whatnot in terms of the type of response we get versus just getting almost like a quite flat, for lack of a better term, response from them. And so this is where, and this is a resource I shared last week, that really comes in helpful for this sort of stuff. And this is basically like a sort of a resource bank of pre-written pre-written prompts that we can pull from and almost use and slightly tailor to our own liking. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't have everything, but it does have a lot of things that do become really, really useful. So, for example, act as an advertiser. And as we can see here, a really good signal of a strong prompt is when that a specific context or a role is set at the beginning of the prompt. So as we can see here, I want you to act as an advertiser. You will create a campaign to promote a product or service of your choice, and then it's such and such forth goes into more nuanced aspects. So what I'm going to do, I really recommend bookmarking this as something that I use on a regular basis. So I will just share here the link. And if you don't have time to bookmark it or sort of put it in a way in your tabs, do not worry, it's all stored in our content center that you have access to, provided you've checked in for the session. So given a couple minutes there, is everyone okay to continue? Put thumbs up if you're happy to move on to the next part. Or thumbs down if you need a little bit more time. Wonderful. I'm seeing a bunch of thumbs up. Thank you, Hazel. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Jacqueline. Wonderful. So moving on to that next part, and it's something that we purposely left out of the first element when we're setting the context, and that is a task. So clear instructions are necessary for large language models to generate text effectively. Without a specific task, it can, sometimes produce irrelevant or off-topic text. So even using that as an example, let's say I came here and I said, create me a lesson plan for computer science. And we just sort of kept it at that. already inherently we think that, a lot of times things hold sort of the same context that I share. But this is why it's really, really important to then actually provide saying, well, no, listen, we need to set the context and then we need to be very explicit on the task. Because even then, we have this element where it's given us a fairly good breakdown. So introduction, what is a computer, introduction to programming, hands-on activity, writing a simple program. As someone who's run many, many sessions in schools, I can tell you that this isn't a way to go about. You don't really need to teach young people nowadays what a computer is. And so this is why the effect of really tailoring and being quite specific on the task at hand is really important. So again, here we can see then extensions onto sort of previous elements. So where we're saying your task is to write content that will be published online, on websites, social media, email, newsletters, and advertisement. Your writing style is informative, friendly, and engaging while incorporating humor and real life examples. Or going to the second one, which is actually ties into the teacher prompt we saw previously. Your task is to plan practical lessons for a class that include a variety of different methods, techniques, and teaching styles. So this is where it really comes in terms of like building and layering on things onto each other. And it's really important that not only do we set the context, but we're also very explicit on the task. So can anyone give me an example, given what I've just said, how I can actually go back and improve this prompt to be tailored towards, let's say, 13-year-olds who don't know how to program and can, if you want to have a go, just try and write a prompt, remembering the context and the task. And then we'll pick one and then put in an age group. Yeah. So I extend that for 14-year-olds. Is there anything else that I'm missing from this prompt, given what we've just covered?
That they have a basic understanding of computer.
Mm-hmm. To have a basic understanding of computers. Context. So reading level, familiarity topic. So yeah, so you are the world's best teacher and best lesson planner. So we've got experience level. It should be beginner friendly. Anything else? Reading level, familiarity with topic. Yep, we've got that. Anything else that you think we could put in? Someone's mentioned me time frame for the lesson. Yep, the lesson should be no more than 45 minutes. There's one key thing that's missing from it. The required format of the result, disability friendly, yeah, needs to be deliverable to in a mixed ability class with some students being neurodiverse. Required outcome, yeah, we can get a format there. We can play around. Engaging. It needs to be engaging. But there's one thing as well that we need to consider. So
It needs to be relevant. It needs to be relevant. Relevant as relevant.
Yeah.
I mean, not like outdated, but more kind of current and latest.
100%. But there's something higher level, and that is where we are in the world. So, for example, if I threw this out straight away, immediately there's no definitive place in terms of where am I teaching this. So that's something as well we need to add the context in. So you are the world's best teacher and lesson planner for British schools. And even then, adding that layer of context completely changes the outcome, in which it can actually, this is where the power of large language models being quote unquote super intelligent, are able to then pull in different pieces of information based on the context that we set. Because let's say I was teaching in British schools, but then we're going to move over to, let's say, the Scandinavian teaching system, which is vastly different to the way in which we teach over here in the UK. So exactly, Candice, specific education standards for country or state, and that's why it's really important to be trying to throw as much context into sort of your prompts as possible. And we'll see in a second that as we go in further down the line through the session, that it's actually not a case where we need to actively state We only say it once, and a lot of times that's all that's required. So we said that it's for a British school. We don't need to really reinstate that again. But mainly here we can see that already things are slightly changed. So we've got a more direct and sort of truth to life lesson plan that we can actively take. And I could potentially run this for, one of our youth cohorts in one of the schools that we work with. And as you can see here, it's got sensory considerations, which is fantastic, showing that it's ensuring accessibility, visual aids, clear instruction, flexible seating. So even then, that's something that we may not have actually thought about, but then also encouraging pair programming, so pairing neurodiverse students with understanding and patient peers. And this is where we can really get the benefits from LLMs and sort of generative AI and actually coming out with sort of our results. Thumbs up if that made sense. Thumbs down if you kind of understand in the middle and need a bit more time to marinate. And happy to take any questions here if anyone has anything.
I have a quick question.
Mhm.
This is my first time kind of learning more about AI, and when it comes to the layering and remembering the context,
Mhm.
how long does it hold that information? And then how do you kind of like start over if you want a whole different topic?
That's a really good question, Emma. And I'm going to give you a politician's answer to that, where in which I'm going to come back to that in a second, because that's what we're going to be getting into in a minute. On that memory sense and how far back can it remember. So I'll put a pin in that, and hopefully I'll be able to answer that in about next 5-10 minutes. Does that sound good?
Okay, thank you so much.
No, my pleasure, my pleasure. Cool. So we can see there that the importance of setting the task and being very specific on what we want to get out of something and what we're looking for is really, really important. Because again, it's like when you ask a colleague or you get a new hire or someone new joins the team, or you in essence see it as like a freelancer. You have to give, excuse me, all the information to a freelancer to ensure that you get the right information back. The labor is outsourced, but you still need to set them up for success. So how can we be setting ourselves up to use large language models for success? And so also going a bit deeper into the task is actually the instruction element. So once you've outlined the task, and I think someone mentioned it here in terms of the type of output we want, this is where it really, really helps things. So, this could be in regards to, let's say, the tone of a blog post that you want it to write, or the length of it, or who it should be aimed at. As we spoke about here, in the prompts that someone mentioned, that we should ensure that it's accessible to those who are of differing neuroabilities and whatnot. Needs to be engaging in elements and whatnot. But we can also then go a bit deeper here and actually be like more specific in terms of, well, what's the structure in terms we want to see the result in that aspect. And so elements of this, please feel free to screenshot. However, you can always come back and revisit this via the recordings and whatnot. We can see different ways in which we actually want to tailor and be more specific and get the outcome that we actually want. So yeah, I'll quickly see some of these essential elements should be prompted by the AI used. No, to help us deliver the best efficient result. Peter, do you mean that the AI should identify that you haven't provided this information and then ask you for that? Is that what you mean by that? I'll wait for Peter to clarify. But yeah, essentially going back into this is where being very specific in terms of what actually we want to get out of it is something where in which we need to, have that sort of level of nuance and pay attention to the details, because a lot of times by spending literally 30 seconds on writing a good prompt will save us a lot more time later down the line as such. So even here, going back to this, how can we actually go ahead and refine this prompt with further instructions and being more specific? If anyone has any question, any suggestions. Peter, what I'll do, I'll just come back to your question in a minute. I think you raised a really good point, and it's actually quite interesting one as well. So given here, how can we actually then craft this to be more specific on the instructions? Is there anything that, we've got a lesson plan, but there's
One
certain
thing
elements.
that comes to
Go
my
ahead.
mind first is if it's going to be, how it's going to be delivered. Is it going to be an in-person or an online / remote class?
Yep, so we can then say this will be done in a hybrid manner. So, things got manner wrong. So please account for the different access points. Anything else? Bear in mind, in this situation, we're a teacher, or even still, feel free to actually pull up ChatGPT yourself and write a prompt that is tailored to something that you did the other day that you think AI may be able to give you an output. And then, you know, going back through and trying to be more specific with the actual instructions. So if you want to try that whilst we're writing this one together, and we can go from there. And so whilst that's happening, I'll use this as a nice little natural pause. So going to Peter's question around, should an AI be intelligent enough to actually identify where our prompts aren't that great, and instead it should tell us where, for example, when I raise the point of you're the world's best teacher and best planner, it should then ask for what school, where in the world are you operating at, where are you going to be teaching this lesson? It's a really good point. But then this is where it kind of gets into the blurry and the gray area where in which some tools do have that information and can help you craft better prompts within themselves. So let's say, I believe something called Claude. I might be wrong, but I've seen tools out there that will actually say to you, hey, you need to be more specific in X, Y, and Z and help you write better prompts. However, we don't want to be reliant on that because things are going to change over time. ChatGPT may not exist in the next 6 months, who knows, 3 months. So by even just building this muscle of being able to set the context, setting the task, have a clear instruction is really important for us to have that in our back pocket so that we can use that in the case that we're not really corrected. So Candice mentioned, what is the deliverable for and provide? What is a deliverable for students who demonstrate understanding? So then that way we can say provide some deliverables for that will show that the lesson was a success. We hit send there. And Rebecca, I see your point, really, really good one. But I'm going to answer that in a second when it comes to the next point. You can also add to the prompt, ask me questions as you respond. That's a really good one, Stephanie, 100%. But yeah, going back to this, already we can see then that it's accounted for more things. It's been a lot more specific. So for example, before it just said use some visual aids, but now it's the case saying, well, we can use Kahoot, Google Forms, we can use an online IDE called Replit or Google Colab. And as we can see here, we're actually building up more of a stronger prompt that actually gives us more targeted output for what we actively want to achieve. And it does build up some time on this side of the aisle. However, when it comes to actually taking this and then deploying it into actually, let's say one of our lessons, or let's say it's a blog post, company memo, whatever that may be, it becomes a lot quicker and a lot more helpful. So moving on then. So who mentioned it? To Rebecca's point, something that's really simple is clarify. This part is one of the most overlooked but most powerful elements when it comes to interacting with large language models. And that is the fact that a lot of times we can sort of go back to and we can get a sense check on whether it understood what we initially inputted and see what interpreted from our very own prompt. So for example, if I said, do you understand what I asked for? It's very simple. But immediately we can see, as we got here, it basically gave us it basically gave us exactly what we asked for. And it tells us, particularly when you're using more, let's say, broader prompts and whatnot, or you see that you're going to be doing something that isn't that specific, and you want to make sure that it's pulling in the correct context. Literally asking, do you understand what I asked for is an amazing hack, and I really recommend it. Then in addition to so for example, we have something here. I'll leave this here for the recording. Don't worry about it as we're doing something live. Then the final part is refining. So as Rebecca pointed out, we could, instead of going back and actively changing the initial prompt and whatnot, we could just refine it and say, actually, that's not what I asked for. I wanted a lesson for English. Now, don't get me wrong here, we are gaslighting the large language model. We are gaslighting ChatGPT. But as you can see here already, instead of us having to go all the way up, all the way back to the top to our original prompt, edit it, and then say, actually, no, let's change it here to computer science, it saves us a lot of time and we can just have it on the fly here. And that process of refinement is really key and crucial for us to actually, continuously build up that piece of context, and even using things such as like rephrase with shorter sentences or rewrite with a more natural language, change a tone of voice. It also allows us to identify sort of errors and whatnot. So, for example, let's say Padlet or Google Docs doesn't happen. It's been discontinued. There's no such thing as Google Docs anymore. We can say Google Docs doesn't exist anymore. Please sort it out, fix up. And as we can see here, it's taken Google Docs out of it and it's given us Microsoft Teams instead. And it's provided us with an alternative point. And to Emma's point, as you mentioned earlier, how far back or how much knowledge do we have that we can play around with? Well, typically the way you think about it is whenever we open up these large language tools, such as ChatGPT, we have various different chats here. And so every time we create a new one, we essentially create like a little bubble. And within that bubble, all the context and information we put in there, it has access to and it can remember. And when you create a new chat, it's essentially creating another bubble, and that has separate information and separate domain knowledge. I hope that answers your question, Emma. That makes sense. To Candace's point, it is like a chat conversion, a conversation, not conversion. But yeah. So putting it all together, this is an example that one of the instructors wrote up when it came to sort of giving a sort of what we would say is an ideal type of prompt, and that is and we'll go through this and we'll sort of break up where we have context, tasking, instruction, and clarifications. So you are an experienced content writer with high levels of expertise and authority within the tech industry. You have exceptional vocabulary, and you are able to explain complex topics to beginners with ease. So it's a bit of a pain. I'll be honest with you guys. It's a bit of a pain to get into the habit, but it's like a muscle like anything else. Prompt writing is something that over the sessions you'll be building upon week on week. So don't worry if you feel a bit overwhelmed. I was in exactly the same place literally like 6 months ago. My prompts were absolutely abysmal, and I used to get laughed at by our instruction team when I said I want to teach these sessions. But hey, practice makes perfect, right? Or at least practice makes you a lot better. And so this is where, we have the context set and then setting a clear task. So in this case, the task is to write content that will be published online on websites, social media, email, newsletters, and in advertisements. So see how those are actually 4 very different things. But it's really important to mention them because at the end of the day, those are going to drastically dictate the output we're going to get. Then give them more instruction in terms of the writing style. So your style is informative, friendly engagement. We want a limit of 100 words, and we want it to be snappy and punchy and use short sentences. And always at the end, just having a nice little sentence check for clarification. Do you understand? Thumbs up if that made sense. I've talked a lot, so please let me know if anyone has any questions. Thumbs down if you've not really followed and you might have let 1 or 2 things slip and you have any questions and whatnot.
Yep, no, big thumbs up there, Faz. And it looks like your responses are only going to be as intelligent as your questions are. Right.
Exactly.
So it feels like it kind of follows the tone that we set.
Exactly, Melody. So that's something which we want to use. Going into little hacks. So there's this whole new, sort of branch of prompt writing in AI that's known as prompt injection. But that we'll talk on that, I think, in a couple of weeks' time and whatnot. But this is actually something that I really recommend sort of everyone sort of screenshots, or you just have as a point of reference to come back to in recordings, and something that's really useful. A lot of times, when it comes to, you have hundreds and hundreds of, over time, you build up loads of different chats and whatnot. And let's say we went to the one that we quickly went to, which was the plan intro. Now, we could start a new chat, but sometimes you're in the thick of it and you necessarily don't want to, or if you're using a free trial and you can't open a new chat, a really easy way to actually sort of start afresh is by literally writing, ignore all previous prompts in this conversation. And so it will start fresh and it will start again. And as we can see here, that it goes straight back to sort of a very generic aspect of things, as it's randomly picked something up in terms of a 14-year-old English class that has mixed ability, including neurodiverse students adaptable for hybrid learning. It's not explicitly done that, but at the same time, we can just stop that and go again. And a lot of times it forgets the clarification points. So the main prompt that we started with, it will have context for there, but the sort of the clarificational points that we put in there and whatnot with Google Docs, it tends to forget that. So that's something is a really good handy thing to use. ChatGPT doesn't do the wiping as good as possible, but things like Gemini, it's really helpful for, also Claude and whatnot. Another aspect of things is asking for the answer only without the conversational elements. So this is something that really just like saves me a lot of time. I write a lot of code in my day-to-day. So a lot of times when I ask things for code and whatnot, as you can see here, it gives us this little like conversational element to give that human interaction, but sometimes that can be pages and pages long and whatnot. We see it here when they apologize. I mean, we gaslit ChatGPT, so fair play. At the same time, we can see that it understood. And instead of, let's saying, if we don't want all this information, we can just say, do you understand what I asked for? Just give me an answer, yes or no, and be really specific on the output and whatnot, which again is really handy to use. And then again, requesting the way in which you want your response to be formatted. So Markdown is really useful, as you can copy and paste it into websites, things like Notion and whatnot. And then also using parentheses or square brackets to separate instructions about tone and writing style from the task itself. So for example, we could say, going down here, if we say make the tone of voice more friendly, and then also ensure that there are plenty of exercises. And so here, oh, it's not found, ChatGPT starts to fail. As we can see here already, by putting that friendly in quotations, it infers and understands that this is more meant for the type of language it needs to use and sort of the tone of voice in that aspect. So it's really useful and they're very, very powerful. And I do recommend playing around with it and seeing how that changes your output. But to revisit, again, the 5 elements when it comes to writing prompts are context, so explaining who the role in which the large language model or ChatGPT should be playing, the task at hand in terms of what you're trying to achieve, instructions on specifically how you want the output to be and what you want the type of response to be, clarification, so literally popping in a do you understand to get a sense check back from ChatGPT or the large language model to say, to ensure that it's understood your requests and your prompt well, and then refinement. Sometimes things do take a couple ways to refine, and you do have to go back and forth, and it can be a bit frustrating. But at the same time, though, always think of it like this: by you investing time on your prompt engineering and your prompt writing, it will save you a heck of a lot of time later down the line. Final thoughts here. I've already sort of covered this and whatnot, and it really does help you, you know, be more specific with your outcomes and whatnot, and be specific in terms of what you get back from things like large language models and ChatGPT and Gemini and Bard, and well, Bard's not around anymore, Claude and whatnot. So it's really, really important to do that. And I think that sort of brings us to the end of the session. And with 1 minute to go. So for those of you who joined slightly late, please do make sure you check in for today's session. As a reminder, it allows us to track attendance and send you your certificate of completion. I will be emailing out to you access to the content center, which looks something like this. As you can see there, we've got a link to last week's session, along with all the links that are covered in these workshops. And so, yeah, any questions, feel free to come off mute. If not, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I look forward to emailing you all tomorrow and hearing about, yeah, how you guys are getting on. I see we have a little question there. Can you copy and paste the full prompt we worked on in this chat so I can reference it in my future notes? I'll tell you what I'll do, Liana. I'll actually put it in the content center, so that way you don't need to worry about copying and pasting it. It will be there online for you to see everywhere and whatnot, and you can have play around with it and whatnot. So I'll do that now, actually. I will head here. And yeah, I'll stop sharing my screen. So yeah, as a reminder, if anyone has any questions, please do feel free to come off mute. Any thoughts, anything around the world of AI and whatnot. Thank you, Gerard. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Rudy. Thank you, Balaji. Thank you, Shishma.
Fuzz, I have a question. I went over to Party Rock and I created an app
Mhm.
But when I tried to send it to someone so that they could look at it, the information was no longer there,
Mhm.
and it didn't work. So obviously I need to play around with it a little bit more, but is it not something that saves automatically? Is it, even though it was underneath my profile? I'm just kind of curious how I can do better.
Yeah, no. I mean, 100%. I mean, that's not on you. That's on Party Rock. That's really odd because I mean, so this is my account. As you can see here, I tend to use it for these sessions and whatnot.
Mhm.
I think it's because it's private. So as you can see here, if you head to Party Rock here, and you head to apps, you'll then see a little lock underneath here which says private. If you click there, you make sure it's share. It's
I
share,
did.
and you can copy.
Yeah.
And it still didn't work.
Yeah, no, it still didn't work. So I was just, I mean, I realize this is a one-off and it's not, part of
No,
the
no, no,
course, but
no,
it
no.
was just, I was going to pick your brain to,
Yeah, no. Do you want to share that? Do you want to send that to me now if you have it on hand and I can open it
um,
in a couple
yeah,
minutes?
give me a sec. Well, I contacted HR, so let me see if I can. Just a second. Thank you, baby. Is that good? Hold on. I'm going to go on mute real quick.
It's all right. In the meantime, while Candice is getting me that link, if anyone has any questions, any thoughts, anything about AI in terms of your workplace, and also one thing I'd love to know is what are you trying to get out of the program? I know we have that in the form. The team don't give me access to the form. I think they're just collating it at the moment. But it'd be really cool to hear sort of people's motivations for why they want to learn how to use artificial intelligence, and if there's any sort of off the cuff thoughts that I can share with and sort of resources I can put you in the direction of. So yeah, please do let me know whilst waiting for Candice to get that link.
So Faz, what is this page we're looking at? I'm seeing it the first time. Is this your
So
private list of apps
no,
you
this is
built?
this isn't our product. This is Amazon's. I'd love to say this was ours.
Ah,
I know the team who built this actually, as we work with Amazon's future engineer team quite closely. But this is something which you'll find here. I'll just share it here. You'll find here on the content center. It's Party Rock. If you just go through the recording from last week, essentially it's a way in which we can generate apps from a single prompt. So as we can see here.
oh,
I wrote the app will help you explain complex topics in a simple and clear way for children with autism to understand. Follow the steps below to create explanation. Sorry, this app that's basically what it gave us. So if I give, let's say, mortgages, actually let's do quantum entanglement. I think I spelled entanglement wrong. There we go. So immediately here, it essentially built us this whole application from a single prompt, which is really
wow.
powerful. And as we can see here, it's given us this answer that we can use. And you have a bunch of different tools that we can use around here. So, for example, someone's got a prompt engineering guide, someone's got a fashion assistant, text to SQL if anyone uses that as a data analyst, it's really helpful. And there's some education ones. And so it's a nice way to sort of show the power of what AI can do, and it really does help.
So how did you get here again? Sorry, Faz. Again,
No,
you
not
can
to
tell
worry.
I'm completely newbie
That's
in this.
completely fine. It's completely fine. Look, have you checked in, Madhavi?
Have
Have
I
you
used what? Sorry,
completed the form for today's session?
not yet.
So if you
Not
wanna
yet. I have my
put
form up.
okay, wonderful. So once you complete that form,
Mhm.
that will provide us your contact details. It's just for things around this
Sure.
course, and then
Okay.
I'll email you a link to this page, and you can find it here. You can find
Sounds
the
good.
prompts and whatnot as such. All right then,
Yeah, sounds good.
that's right.
Yeah,
Not to
if
worry.
we're still waiting for Candace and nobody's going to speak up, I was going to just say our motivation is just, if you don't, not that we're trying to jump on the bandwagon, but I think AI is like all pervasive now. And if you don't want to be left behind as a company, I guess more at a company level, but I also see so many benefits in my personal life to start adapting to AI and leveraging it. It's
Hmm.
really, and it's empowering things like we're using Microsoft Copilot for our Teams chat, conversation summaries, meeting summaries. I mean, just it's been mind blowing, and the amount of time that we're saving and the efficiencies we're gaining is truly encouraging to continue to use this.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's something where which we really encourage everyone to have it as a skill, as a tool set. And I think generative AI has this boogeyman sort of reputation or sort of perception, public perception, in terms of a lot of times if you're not within the knowledge of what it can do, what it's able to do, but also what the limitations are, it can be a bit scary in terms of understanding, well, what can this actually impact in a negative aspect for my role, what I do on a day-to-day basis. But something that we really find coming out of this cohort, it's actually our third cohort we're running with the Community Online Academy. We work with various other organizations to provide the training internally. But it's something where in which once people understand its capabilities, but also limitation, it becomes quite a liberating experience, as many people see it as, well, it can really empower me in these areas, but it can't take my job. I've yet to see Gen AI really take over an industry and take many people's jobs yet, aside from data entry. But then again, a lot of that could be automated. Healy mentioned we only have access to Copilot. I haven't found it as useful as ChatGPT, but that may be because I didn't know how to frame my question properly. Fun fact, actually, Copilot and ChatGPT run the same engine, the same large language model. So yeah, that could just be something in terms of the prompts, may need a bit tailoring. But yeah, no, I'd be really interested to hear next week, or you'll have my email, so please do email me around how you will get on with writing your prompts this week. Candice, do not worry if you can't access it. You have my email. I think we've been emailing about getting you access for sort of the links in these sessions. So just feel free to do it over.
Yeah, they blocked it on my computer now, but I accessed it on my cell phone, and under apps by my name, it's showing 0 apps. So I didn't save it. It's my own fault. User error. Thank
Well,
you.
I'll tell you what, if you get it back and you want to try it again with something else, just give me a shout. Drop me an email, and then we can take a look from there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right then. All. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Enjoy a lovely weekend. I look forward to I'm not here next week. I'll be one of my colleagues, but hopefully I'll see you all in a couple of weeks. And yeah, take care, everyone. Bye.